I've always thought that turkey hunting is one of the best ways to introduce somebody to hunting. It's usually a much faster pace. Hearing those turkeys gobbles off in the distance kind of gets that blood pumping more. You're not sitting there and just waiting for something to come by. It's typically less involved as far as the setup goes. You don't have to be as quiet or worry about scent control, and it tends to be a lot warmer. So if you've got somebody that just isn't used to sitting out in the cold for long periods of time, that can be a big plus. It's also very easy to mess up. People tend to think that turkeys are stupid, and that is true in the general sense of intelligence, but they have those tiny little brains and those ugly little faces. People tend to get complacent when it comes to hunting them. They think that you can just go out, listen for a gobble, sprint in that general direction, and fill that tag. It only takes one very frustrating turkey season to make you just give it up altogether. So in this video, we're gonna go over 5 beginner turkey hunting mistakes. Now I say beginner, and they are, some of the fundamental mistakes that a lot of newbies make. But even veteran turkey hunters can make these mistakes too, so it's great for just kind of a refresher, especially as we head into turkey season. But before we go over these beginner mistakes, do me a favor, and if this is your first time on my channel, hit that subscribe button and make sure you click that bell icon so you can be notified every time I upload a video. And the first beginner turkey hunting mistake is you're just not scouting. It is always a good idea to scout before the season, no matter what you're hunting for. There are a lot of turkey hunters that think that they just don't need to scout. They can just go out that morning, listen for a gobble, and then just try to set up on that bird. And while that may work sometimes you can get lucky, but you have to be like in the right area at the right time to make that happen. Now, if you've been hunting the same piece of property year after year after year, and you're maintaining it for a good turkey population, for good turkey hunting, then you can probably skip that. But there's very few hunters that really can afford to do that. And the ones that can get away with it, I can guarantee you they are not beginners in any sense of the word. I had a friend that wanted me to take him out turkey hunting on some family land a few years ago. And we didn't scout, which was my mistake, but we didn't scout because this family member that owns and lives on that property had said that they always see turkeys out in this field. So we were like, okay, well, we'll just go to that field that morning and we should be good to go. However, he didn't tell us how big that field was. Like, it was at least a 10-acre field, a big cattle pasture. And so we got set up on this field, and we did see turkeys. There were a couple of big toms working across the field, but they were clear on the other side of the field, and they had no interest in our calls, no interest in our decoys. So we just had to watch them work across the field and then disappear out of sight. And so if we had taken the time just to go out and just even get eyes on this field to see what he was talking about, then we would have known that, okay, we're gonna have to really think about this. Where do you typically see these turkeys? Where do they come out of? Where do they go to? So then that way we could set up in a better spot. So that way we can find out where we need to set up to intercept in between where they're roosting and wherever they're going to feed. You'll be so glad that you took the extra time to get eyes on where this person says that the turkeys are going to be, or even if you just need to go out and find out for yourself, okay, they tend to roost over here on this hillside, and then there's some clover plots over here, there's a cattle pasture over here. Where do we need to set up in between that? And you will be in a much better place come opening morning. And the second beginner turkey hunting mistake is you just have a poor setup. Turkeys have great vision, so your setup needs to be very well concealed. However, you don't want to brush yourself in too much, because while you may be brushed in pretty good, they won't see you, but you limit your vision, you limit your shot opportunity. So the goal is to be very well concealed, but not constricted. A shady spot where you can see in a good direction of where the turkeys might come from is ideal. You definitely don't want to be so constricted in that vision that you don't know the turkeys are there until they're right on top of you, and then they're either looking right at you or you don't have an opportunity to get your gun set up. You also want to think about layers to concealment. You need something in front of you and behind you to really break up your pattern. Just having one or the other is not ideal. I know that sometimes you can't help it, but try to think about layered concealment when you're setting up your spot, you're brushing yourself in. And if you use decoys, you need to set them up in a way that when they attract the tom's attention, it doesn't put that attention into your general direction. So think about, like, if you're on a logging road or there's some other type of long strip and you're sitting right on the edge and you put your decoys right out in front of you and you're expecting the turkeys to come from this way or maybe even coming from behind you. So they're going to be coming from the general direction where you're either sitting in between them and those decoys or you're sitting right past those decoys. So no matter what, they're going to kind of see in that general direction. So a better setup is if you're on that logging road, sit kind of perpendicular to where you've got your decoys out in front of you and the toms are going to be coming from this way or this way, and their view comes perpendicular to you. You're not in their line of sight. And the third beginner turkey hunting mistake is you move way too much. I am definitely a fidgeter. It could be that I sit at a desk at work all day, or maybe I just have a short attention span. Or sometimes you just can't get comfortable. And this kind of fits in with the poor setup mistake. If you can't get comfortable, there's always something digging into you, or you feel like you don't have a good view, so you're kind of fidgeting around so you can see around things a lot. That movement is going to give you away in no time. Learn to look with your eyes and not your head. You don't need to do this kind of thing, every few seconds. Just kind of slowly look with your eyes. If you need to, look a little farther this way, you just slowly turn your head that way. You don't need to, like I said, no quick jerky movements, slow, deliberate, and you should be able to get away with, being able to look around. Invest in a good turkey vest that has a nice thick cushion like this one from Tidewee. I'll put a link to it down in the description, but it's got a very thick pad, and it's even got this kickstand on the back of it. So if you don't have a good backrest, you can kick that thing out, lean back, you've got a nice cushy seat, and you're good to go. But if you are really bad about fidgeting, you can't seem to sit still no matter what, then you probably should just get into a blind. Sit in a pop-up blind to get a nice comfy chair, and that way your movement isn't going to be as noticeable. But really, I don't know, figure something out to figure out why you can't sit still. And the fourth mistake is you are calling way too much. This is probably my hardest learned lesson. It can be very tempting to just keep calling to turkeys, blind calling all the time, every 5 minutes, just trying to get something to come in when you have had some very hard seasons and you're just desperate. Where this overcalling has really bit me in the ass is I had one particular hunt where I had this tom that would respond to absolutely every call I made. He would cut me off before I even finished it. I would do some pretty bad calls too, and he would just gobble his head off, but he never came any closer. And I just stupidly kept calling, thinking he's got to come in at some point, and he never did. What I should have done is I should have just gone silent. It's very tempting, like I said, to just keep calling when that tom is responding to you. But when that tom is just gobbling his head off, not moving any closer, what he's expecting is that hen to come to him. That's just how it happens in nature. And by giving him the silent treatment, I'm essentially making him think that I'm just not interested anymore. So go quiet in those instances. Now, it's not a guarantee that it always will work, but it's better than just sitting there calling your head off, hoping that he finally just decides to come in. And the fifth beginner turkey hunting mistake is my second and still ongoing problem that I have to deal with, is that you're just too impatient. When the toms aren't gobbling and you aren't seeing anything, it is very tempting to just pick up and move to a different location, or even just go back to the house. Do everything you can to ignore that urge. This also applies to that calling situation where you've got that tom that's responding to you, but he just won't come any closer. Now, I had another situation that I was like, okay, so I kept calling and it didn't work. So this time, if it happens again, I'm going to get up and try to move to him. And while that is a valid strategy, it's not a beginner strategy. And again, do it at your own peril, because I spooked that turkey very quickly. There has also been far too many situations where, I do my calling, every 15, 30 minutes, just throwing out some yelps with my box call, and, nothing's responding, no gobbles, no, I'm not seeing any movement. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm going to get up and go someplace else. I get up, take 3 or 4 steps, and I hear that cluck, and I see this tom that was just 30 yards away from me, working his way in silently. Again, it's happened way more than I'd like to admit. And sometimes the right thing to do is to get up and try someplace else. But anytime you feel like you need to move, or you're ready to quit and go back to the house, give it another 15 or 20 minutes. See how long you can just force yourself to sit a little longer, and it does pay off. It's happened quite a bit. There was one time I made myself. This was after the last time, I think it was 2 seasons ago, I had got up, spooked off a turkey that was literally right there. If I had just waited another 5 minutes, I'd have got him. I forced myself to sit in the exact same spot the entire morning. I sat from sunrise till 10:30 and finally had that tom work in, and I got him. But I'm not saying you have to sit there for 4 hours, but try to make yourself sit a little bit longer every time you get that urge to move. So that was 5 of some of the most common turkey hunting mistakes that new hunters make. And even veterans make these mistakes. We need to be reminded of them from time to time. If you've got any more beginner mistakes that you'd like to share, make sure you leave those down in the comments below. And if you're looking for some more turkey hunting tips, make sure you check out one of these videos over here. Hit that like button if you like this video, share it if you found it helpful, and make sure that you are subscribed so you can stay informed.